morning, everybody. Klemens, Hjartar. I will not be speaking about procurement, but I'll be speaking about something that hopefully is relevant for all of you. So I was walking through the halls this morning, and of the 50 booths or so, I found 2 that didn't say AI or agentics. So I guess this is a little bit the theme of this conference. We are at the middle of the hype cycle. And I lead technology globally for McKinsey. And this picture is what I'm dealing with every day. It feels like we are in the middle of a huge battle of who is going to be controlling the agentic orchestration of the future. The promise of the technology is enormous. We are seeing a CapEx spend of probably 500 to 600 billion US dollars this year. This CapEx is projected to go to 1.2, 1.3 in 3 years' time. We are seeing a software industry that has gone from a 200 billion industry 10 years ago, in 15, to around 900 today, to projected 4,000 billions, 4 trillions in 2035, so in another 10 years. So kind of the expectation is software is going to grow at least 15-20% for another 10 years. And the value that is at stake is enormous. And that is the behavior that we are seeing. That is the reason why we are seeing this amazing CapEx boom. And the behavior in the industry is not very nice. The main don't quote me on this, I know that I'm on stage, but there's a lot of behavior of just trying to lock in the value that has already been created. We are seeing SaaS companies that are sitting on your data, throttling data access for Gen AI players. We are seeing limited access of process mining. We are seeing a lot of solutions being offered that are like serverless, that is basically building in locks to kind of make sure that you continue to compute on their platform. And there's no wonder that this is happening, because the value at stake is enormous. Kind of the companies in the industry are already the most valuable companies on earth. And with this growth, kind of the value at stake is crazy. So in all aspects of what is happening here, we are actually seeing an ongoing battle. And I think kind of when you are thinking about the agentic value proposition, and you're thinking about the tooling and things that you're going to use in your companies, just think a little bit about this. Kind of what is it that is actually happening in the industry, and how you think that this is going to play out. From a European perspective, this is also super important, and we see some of the largest institutions being really worried about being able to build platforms that they control, that kind of that are sovereign and will serve kind of them, and not put you in a position where you will be paying all of the tax for this amazing CapEx spend that is happening. The story about what is happening for real in the industry is also changing a bit. If I would have been standing here 6 months ago, I would mostly be talking about the massive gap that we have between the promise and what's actually ending up in production. And we will also be talking about a story where the tech industry would just tell you, guys, don't worry about this. There's going to be a huge context window. Everything is going to be fine, and just kind of lean back. But the story has changed significantly in the last 9 months. Firstly, we actually begin to see that this technology needs real implementation. It needs context, it needs guidelines, it needs evaluations, observability, and so on. But we're also beginning to see some kind of really big implementations getting live into productions at very, very large companies. So we hosted our own advisory council 2 weeks ago in New York. And those are some of the largest companies in the world. The companies that are at the top of this game, they are moving at scale. So we had companies there, obviously very large companies, that claimed that they were thousands of man-years ahead of their engineering budget in 2025 and see a quite promising kind of trajectory into 26. So kind of this is actually beginning to move, but it is a very skewed picture. I'm not going to dwell kind of too much kind of into this. Kind of when I saw everything, I assume that somebody told you about what this technology is all about. But if you think about it in simple terms, you're going from a technology that is kind of more kind of working as kind of you've all seen kind of ChatGPT, towards systems that are much more complex, that you're giving goals, you're giving them tools, you're giving them missions, and you're obviously building a framework around getting this all right. The thing that has been holding us back is that this is a complex technology to implement. We have seen a massive fall off when things go from the development stage into production. We are talking about kind of a lot of the promise has simply not been fulfilled when you go into the production stage, because you actually need systems that are really scalable and are really free of hallucination and is within all of the risk guidelines that we have set for the systems. We've also seen a lack of end-to-end impact. So basically this phenomenon that if you get a tool that help you, it can create kind of value. You can kind of free up a few hours kind of in the day. But like the total P&L impact on a large company has been kind of harder to go. And then another one, and this is relevant also when you see for procurement, all of the vendors that are knocking at your doors, that is this fragmented tech usage. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So the reason that some of you are still in the pilot kind of phase of doing this, some of you basically say we have more pilots than Lufthansa. So kind of we have pilots all over, but we are not seeing anything kind of go into kind of production, is that a lot of them are being implemented in application silos. So kind of it is either kind of SaaS providers that are giving you a solution that is a point solution. It is one of the existing platform vendors that are creating kind of services that are only really valid and can be controlled within their kind of ecosystems. While the technology promises significant reuse, right? So kind of the ability to actually build really important assets, kind of a voice agent that can be used in many kind of situations around kind of your company, a document retriever agent that you can have central observability on, having a central evaluation kind of platform, having a global registry of kind of tools and resources, is something that the industry has not really provided yet. And we are seeing a clear correlation between the companies that are really taking off, that they are actually building this platform. And kind of, I just encourage you to really look into this platform shift, right? Kind of make sure that you have something that increases this horizontal learning approach. It's also going to accelerate the learning in your organizations very significantly. So that is kind of a very important point. The second point I wanted to kind of point to is that we are seeing the shift now into digital factories. A digital factory goes beyond just creating an agent against a task, but is basically mimicking real end-to-end complex processes into agentic organizations. So kind of what does this kind of mean? It means that you are able to get much more throughput end-to-end and a much more kind of bigger leverage from your employees into the agentic kind of work. and we are seeing kind of this ratio 20x into kind of people to agent. I'm not going to show you a procurement kind of example, but like these are being built out for many kind of areas. This is an example of refactoring kind of old legacy code, taking input from logs, from the code, from interviews with users, screenshots, outputs of the system, the purpose of the system, and getting real documentation of what the system actually is about, making that out in English, having a spec-driven development into a new generation of system. And the first projects that have been done in this approach, they're already done. So kind of there are multi-$100 million projects that have already been completed using an agentic factory like this. And this is revolutionary. So this is fundamentally changing how you use this technology. But now it's also being used for business processes. So this is an example from a kind of KYC onboarding in a wholesale bank. And this is a huge process. So this is ingestion of information about a new client. You need to kind of take kind of annual reports. You need to take kind of interviews. You need all kinds of reports. You need to do kind of screening against sanctions lists. You need to kind of get kind of ownership charts of beneficial owners. You need to hold it up against all kinds of things. And the output is like a major report. So an onboarding of a wholesale customer in a large bank, this is a process that takes months. And all of a sudden, you have something that helps the full process. We see something similar in procurement. If you want to do a negotiation of a long tail of contracts, create an agentic factory that can actually do the whole work. So this is kind of something kind of where the ambition of what we're trying to do is just kind of going up kind of in a very significant way. And we expect this is going to continue kind of at pace. The other thing, or the third thing I wanted to kind of point out is that of all use cases of kind of Gen AI technology right now, the largest use case that is driving kind of revenue for the tech kind of industry is consumer ChatGPT. The second one is the whole SDLC and PDLC process. So software delivery lifecycle, product delivery lifecycle. And of all of the areas, this is the one that I'm most excited about. This is just showing you kind of the typical mix of development in a typical large organization. And we can already see an amazing productivity in small companies. If you have a founder-led company using Cursor or Devin or kind of any of these kind of tools, we're actually seeing kind of a tenfold productivity. But we haven't seen it in very large organizations where the process from idea to implementation is super long. And this is changing because we are using the agentic orchestration to create context for that whole process all the way through. And the largest institutions that have built platforms around this, they are actually seeing this. And the message is a little bit, this is something that you will have to look into. And it means a few things. If you have a competitor that gets this to work, they will out-innovate you in relatively short amount of time. It also means that we as managers that have been kind of not born kind of like this century, we have a sense of how long things take. So kind of we have like just muscle memory on this kind of project to take this long and so on. This is changing. So kind of revisit your roadmap and say, if you have 3-year kind of programs, maybe it only takes 1 year now. So kind of it's like revisit of the strategic planning for the next years. Lastly, and somebody has probably also kind of told you this, the capabilities are continuing to evolve very fast. What's really kind of putting a lot of kind of into my attention these days is not only the model development, but all of the tooling around it. The orchestration, the memory management, long-term kind of context, There's a huge evolution in small language models. So kind of when you're doing these large kind of orchestration flows, you can train a small model to do things that are kind of very kind of pointed. So the whole ecosystem around this is happening really, really fast. And for all of you, it is time to actually rethink kind of how do we actually do this with this in mind, right? So kind of do I have flows that are like fundamentally going to change in the coming years? I know that I may not have all of the tools available now at the end of 2025, but if I project myself into 2030, I know that software is going to come in a significantly different way. What is it that I do? And we are seeing that everything is going to elevate. And kind of what do I mean when I say elevate? Well, it means that instead of doing things, a lot of the jobs will be in actually describing what things should be. So we will have to put much more resources into kind of SOPs, into kind of all kinds of spec-driven frameworks that give guidance to this new organization. So kind of and there we see kind of already now we need a massive elevation of all of that, because if we happen to do that really, really well, this transformation is going to go much more efficiently for those that do that. A few things that I wanted to highlight that kind of is really working. The firstly is this horizontal approach. Kind of if you want to scale, you need to tie together all of your ecosystems. You will be able to take a few pilots and scale them, and that is fine, because this is a learning competition. It is a little bit like being in the Tour de France. You're in the peloton. If you take a break, the peloton is going to cycle on, and you will never kind of catch up. So kind of the pilots are fine, but you kind of to go beyond it, to do these end-to-end processes, you will have to take a horizontal approach. And that should kind of, for especially large companies, it needs to be something that you fully control yourself. The third kind of principle is the one around ambition. So kind of set a really high ambition for what you're doing. If kind of getting in a tool that can kind of help you sort out your data just a little bit and so on, it is fine, but it's just not going to change anything. So kind of set a kind of a ridiculously high ambition, which is actually an unlock. Because when you set the high ambition, it means that you will put in new technology, you will put in new KPIs, you will put in new kind of ways of working, and all of those things won't change if you don't put in the high ambition. Go for the end-to-end kind of workflows. We already talked about that. Embrace the open ecosystem, right? Kind of embrace all of the people that are here, but get them to work with you on the platform approach, right? Kind of have them help you, right? Have them expose the tools with MCP servers into your orchestration layer. Taking a horizontal approach doesn't mean that you can't work with the ecosystem. It just needs a different way of working together. And then the last point is around this will obviously have significant impact on organizations and how we work. But to sum it all up, you will have to work on the vision. Kind of the 2030 is going to look very, very different than today. And you actually need to spend time on aligning kind of people around that. Establish the platform. I think I've said this now 5 times. Kind of this is a crucial element. Kind of if you don't do this, you just won't scale. We can almost kind of prove it statistically. You will have to strengthen technical capabilities. You will have to kind of get in people, and kind of it's not like you can hire a lot of these people. You actually have to create them, because a lot of the methods, ways of working, and so on haven't really been invented yet, and are being invented as we speak. So kind of make sure that kind of you get people that can drive that for you. When you create a platform, you will empower your workforce, right? Because you will give them a common set of tools to work with and a framework that will allow them to do this much, much faster. If you will be asking anybody who wants to do a pilot to onboard a new technology in a new framework, nothing is going to happen.